The courtroom had grown still, not out of respect, not yet, but out of confusion. They had expected a child to stumble. They had prepared to dismiss her, to lean back in their chairs and let her sink. But Maya Brooks wasn't sinking. She was rising. And when she opened that laptop, the world they thought they understood began to fall apart, slide by quiet, undeniable slide. No drama. No theatrics. Just a 15-year-old mute black girl pressing the spacebar with the calm of someone who had waited too long to be heard. Slide 1. A grainy security still. Timestamp. 10:14 p.m. Maya, clearly visible, at a convenience store a mile and a half away from the school. Next to it, a cash register receipt. 10:14 and 27 seconds p.m. Paid in cash. Slide 2. A digital map. Distance from store to school, 1.4 miles. Estimated walking time, 27 minutes. The fire had been reported at 10:17 p.m. It was math. Simple, undeniable math. But in this courtroom, truth had never been about math. It had been about volume. Who could speak loudest? Who could speak at all? Until now. Now, the silence had teeth. She moved deliberately toward the jury, placing folders before them one by one. Not just evidence. Evidence arranged by logic, annotated by hand, organized with more precision than anything the prosecution had presented in weeks. Each folder carried a message. Truth is in the details. No more. No less. She returned to the defense table. Pressed the spacebar again. Slide 3. A still from a different security camera. A hooded figure walking away from the library, not her. Taller. Broader. Wrong shoes. Wrong side of the building. Slide 4. A side-by-side comparison. Her photo from earlier that day, worn sneakers. The figure in the prosecution's footage, black tactical boots. And then she did something no one expected. She walked toward the judge's bench. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded envelope, creased, yellowing, the ink on the edge beginning to bleed. Judge Whitman stared at her. Maya placed the envelope down beside the gavel, then stepped back. Whitman opened it with cautious hands. A single sheet of lined paper. At the top, Angela Brooks. And beneath it, just one line. If anything happens to me, tell the truth. There was no gasp in the room. Just breath leaving bodies like air from a punctured tire. Judge Whitman read the rest silently, her eyes narrowing. Her hands stopped moving. The paper trembled once, briefly, then lay still in her grasp. Maya didn't explain. She didn't have to. She returned to the projector. Slide 5. Video footage. Internal camera, library office, 3 weeks before the fire. Angela Brooks arguing with Principal Vernon Nash. He was red-faced, pacing, waving his arms like a man who knew he was running out of time. She pointed at documents. At her own chest. At the door. She walked out. He didn't follow. But he watched her go. The clip ended. No captions. No narration. Only truth. And the slow collapse of a lie that had held up an entire town's belief system. And Maya wasn't done. She reached into her backpack again. Another flash drive. She placed it gently on the prosecution's table. Next to it, a note scrawled in even handwriting. Emails between my mother and school officials. Start with the ones sent 2 weeks before the fire. The prosecutor stared at it like it might explode. It already had. The screen lit up again. Email number 1. Angela to Nash and Admin Board. Subject, budget inconsistencies. Attached, spreadsheets, red flags, unpaid invoices, questions. Email number 2. Nash. Angela, this isn't your place. Let it go. Email number 3. A week before the fire. We may have to revisit your employment status. Email number 4. 8:12 p.m., night of the fire. I have evidence of altered records. I'm requesting a meeting tomorrow morning. She never made it to that meeting. No one spoke. Even the clerk had stopped typing. And then Maya reached for one final item. Not a graph. Not an exhibit. A video. It began with static. Then a soft image flickered to life, shaky camera, warm lighting. Her mother, Angela, sitting in a library chair, tired but composed. If something ever happens to me, I want this to be for Maya. Her voice, soft and tired, filled the courtroom like incense. She doesn't have a voice, but she sees what others don't. She knows what matters. She'll find a way to be heard. She looked into the camera, into them, and whispered. Don't mistake her silence for surrender. The screen went black. Not a breath. Not a cough. Maya stepped forward. wrote 5 words on the courtroom's whiteboard. "I came here to show," then capped the marker, and waited. Judge Whitman didn't pick up her gavel. She didn't need to. She stood, walked down from the bench, lifted the envelope and the drive like holy artifacts. And then, softly, more to herself than the courtroom, she spoke. "You didn't just defend yourself. You dismantled the story we were told." And Maya? She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just stood still, unshaken, like a monument in the eye of a long, hard storm. And the verdict? Not guilty. 2 words. But they shook the courthouse more than the fire ever could. For a moment after the words "not guilty" were spoken, it didn't feel real. No confetti, no fanfare. Just silence, deep, collective, and unfinished. The gavel never fell. It didn't need to. Those 2 syllables had already split the air like a crack in old glass. People in the gallery started to shift. Not to leave, no one dared yet, but because something inside them had. A few stood. A few looked at Maya like they'd never seen her before. Because they hadn't. Not really. She had been just a shape, a rumor, a girl without a voice, until that moment. Now she was weight. She was force. She was proof. Her Aunt Lydia, in the second row, pressed both hands to her mouth. Her shoulder shook, but no sound came out. It wasn't grief this time. It was something closer to awe. Because she'd raised this girl in the shadow of tragedy, under the weight of silence, and now that silence had become a sword. Across the room, the prosecutor stood frozen, staring at the USB drive like it still might rewrite reality. The folder on his table, the one with Maya's name printed on the tab, now looked embarrassingly empty. Judge Whitman had returned to her seat, but she hadn't picked up her pen. She just sat there, staring down at Maya with a look that no longer held authority, but something rarer, respect. And then, something happened. A man in the jury box, a retired machinist, hair white, eyes tired from decades of habit, slowly stood. He didn't clap. He didn't raise his hands. He just stood, tall, still. Then, he clapped once, twice, a third time, measured, quiet, but full of weight. It was not applause for victory. It was recognition. The sound rippled outward like a tide. Another juror rose. And another. Not all, but enough. Maya turned her head. Just slightly. She didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just breathed. Then she gathered her things, her folders, her laptop, her USB drives, the marker she'd used to write the truth, and walked toward the courtroom doors. No one stopped her. Outside, the sky was not dramatic. No thunder rolled. No light cut through clouds. It was just afternoon. Warm. Still. A woman waited near the steps with a phone. She had once worked beside Angela Brooks at the library. Now, she held the phone steady, tears in her eyes. Maya stepped into the frame. There were no news crews. No reporters. Just the hum of traffic. The buzz of insects. The soft scrape of her shoes on the courthouse stone. She turned once, looked back at the building behind her, red brick, tall windows, old paint cracking around the edges. A place that had tried to define her. Tried to crush her in silence. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a small white card, the same handwriting she had used to organize every folder, label every photo, build every argument. She held it up to the phone camera. "One day, I'll speak for others. Until then, I'll keep showing the truth." She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Then, she walked away. Not as a defendant. Not as a victim. But as something far more powerful. A voice the system never saw coming. A truth it couldn't unhear. And somewhere, far behind her, in the courtroom that had once doubted her, sat a woman in black robes who no longer saw just a girl in faded sneakers. She saw a storm. Quiet, but unstoppable.